Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a Ukrainian show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star. I'm broadcasting from the island of Curacao. Today's guests are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Well, thank you, Sasha. Glad to be here as always, and glad to see that you're staying healthy.
Thank you, Jonathan. And our man in Kiev, Ivan Kucheryanka. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Glad to be here today. I guess Curacao is a former Dutch colony, but in the modern world, it doesn't know anything. It doesn't matter which ship landed there first, so it may be another part of United States or Russia to make it, or maybe China. Who is gonna to capture Curacao first?
Well, the argument could be like this. Why is it Dutch? Because they sent a few hundred years ago a little boat to Curacao and claimed it as it's part of Dutch. However, it's disputable, and we'll see what will happen. And so far, let's start, Ivan, with your video.
Yeah, sure. Let's start with it.
Russia isn't winning the war in Ukraine. Judging by some of the comments on here, a mind-numbing number of fuckwits seem to believe that Russia is winning the war in Ukraine and is therefore in a position to be dictating the terms of any peace deal. This is absolute bollocks. Reason number one, Russia's main war aim failed within weeks. It's easy to forget now, but nearly 4 years ago, Russia invaded Ukraine to overthrow its government, install a puppet regime, and gain effective control over the entire country. Nearly 4 years later, Russia is reduced to having to essentially con and beg the US into handing it the areas of the Donbass that it still cannot take militarily. Russia controls about 1/5 of Ukraine, and 1/5 of an objective is nowhere near winning. Number two, Russia's invasion is destroying its military. Russia used to have elite troops, now it just has cannon fodder. Russia used to have a Black Sea fleet, now it's just got a handful of useless boats. Russia used to have thousands of tanks, now it just has mobile coffins for the hundreds of thousands of soldiers it doesn't give the slightest fuck about. Russia's losses of men and materiel are vastly greater than Ukraine's, and nothing screams things aren't quite going to plan more than losing 1.2 million men in a war that was supposed to be over in a couple of weeks. Number three, desperation. Mass missile and drone attacks like the one last night on Kyiv are launched by aircraft located hundreds of miles inside Russian territory. Why? Because since day one, Russia, apparently the second greatest military power in the world, failed to secure air superiority, and their chicken-ass pilots don't dare fly too close to Ukraine. So in order to make up for Russia's myriad military failings during this war, they now resort to bombing civilian infrastructure in an attempt to free civilians into submission. That's not strength, it's desperation. Reason four, despite all of the bullshit that flows from the Kremlin, time is not on Russia's side at all. The economy is on life support provided by ever-increasing war spending, and Putin can't stop the war because when he does, all manner of bad things will happen. The economy tanks, hundreds of thousands of disgruntled soldiers return home expecting what's owed to them, and Ukraine still stands. Putin isn't winning, he's trapped in a death spiral of his own making with no way out except to wage more war. Reason number five, long term, Russia might not even be viable as a state. As mentioned in a previous video, Russia was facing a devastating demographic time bomb even before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Then Putin sent off millions of men in the prime of their lives to fight, die and lose limbs in Ukraine. In short, Putin is sacrificing the long-term viability of Russia in a desperate attempt to save face over a war that has failed in every single objective it set out to achieve. None of this exactly sounds like winning to me. And yes, Ukraine isn't winning either, but it's still standing and holding the line, which, after 4 years, is a far bigger achievement than anything that the Kremlin can claim. So maybe we should be rewarding that rather than one of the biggest military blunders in modern history.
That is absolutely spectacular. We might as well just say, well, wait till next video. Wait till next time. I mean, he has just summarized all the reasons, which I wholeheartedly agree with. And I've been saying more or less the same thing in various degrees on our programs. But this just illustrates in the strongest possible terms why the correlation of forces is shifting continuously in favor of Ukraine. So that all that remains to be done, in my opinion, is for Ukraine to throw that last decisive counterpunch, a decisive counteroffensive, which, again, my supposition, based upon what I've seen, is they will launch that counterpunch against the Crimea to retake the Crimea and put an exclamation point on this entire thing. Russia will then be compelled by military events of its own making to withdraw from eastern Ukraine, and a peace agreement will become pretty much a moot point. It'll be a natural byproduct of military victory in Ukraine.
Yeah, I agree, of course. There's everything what he said and what you said. There is no argument about that. It's just a moment what I would add to his presentation is that normally, if it would be normal NATO, it used to be for so many years, they should be applauded to Ukraine exhausting Russian resources, the military, the economic, and so on. So if there was supposed to be an idea that Russia is arch enemy for NATO and the Western Europe countries, Ukraine liquidating that possibility for many, many years to come and maybe forever. So therefore, but Europeans understand that they are helping Ukraine big time and so on. On the other hand, US, Donald Trump, he said to European leaders, you don't worry about Greenland, pay your attention to Ukraine. That's what you have to do. Forget about Greenland and don't mess around with that. Okay, that's his point of view. I don't know how valid it is and so on. Now, Ukrainian people are suffering, of course, big time, especially psychologically because of this Russian terrorist attacks. Unfortunately, interestingly enough, that with all the arsenal of ballistic missiles and other equipment, whatever they are using against Ukraine, relatively very few people have been killed in Ukraine as civilians. Yes, they were, of course, many people were killed, but you can't compare it, for example, with what happened during Second World War in Dresden, when there was regular bombardments of Dresden every night, and where 250,000 people were killed. There's nothing happening of that magnitude here, not even close. So I don't think that Russians are achieving the goal of psychologically attack Ukrainian people, so they would agree to peace at any price and just get us out of there or so on. Now, what's interesting is that Zelensky proposed, what I read is that he would like to have a referendum, peace referendum, and presidential election all as one event, one-day event, and both things will happen. Ivan, what's your opinion? Is that doable? Is it a viable option?
It's a viable option when there will be possibilities to arrange it, because any elections process cannot be done successfully during the wartime regime, which is now in Ukraine, and without any ceasefire, because a lot of people are directly on the battlefield as soldiers, as Ukrainian soldiers, how they will vote when Russians are attacking the civilian infrastructure, how can be any security guarantees given to people who will go to election points in order to vote, and then Russian ballistic missile will just flew there and kill dozens of civilians. And of course, a lot of people left Ukraine and currently are being abroad as refugees, and it's nobody can understand how to arrange a process for them, because Ukrainian embassies abroad just will not will be successful with such a huge amount of traffic when, for instance, all those millions of Ukrainians living now in Germany or in Poland will decide to vote and go to Ukrainian embassies, there will be huge people traffic jams here, and the election, the voting process cannot be done using the mobile phones or via the post, because according to Ukrainian legislation, the vote of Ukrainian citizen on the elections should be anonymous. And without the physical voting process, using, for instance, the electronic government systems like DIA mobile application, they will not allow to arrange anonymous voting process, because those people who are managing those systems will be able to just to check who voted for Zelensky, or who voted for Zaluzhny, or who voted for Yulia Tymoshenko, whatever. So it's not possible without at least ceasefire agreement. But the step of Zelensky to make Ukrainian people decide whether they want to give Ukrainian territories to Russia, or whether they want to change the Ukrainian law and accept occupied territories as Russian part. It's reasonable, actually, because it's not a point of president of Ukraine. It's not a point of president of Russia. It's not a point of president of United States to decide which Ukrainian territories to keep and which Ukrainian territories to give. It's a point of Ukrainian people to decide, and that decision obviously can be made only during the referendum, national referendum. So it's a reasonable point.
I think that Zelensky is quite reasonable to hold the referendum, whether with election or by itself, simply because he doesn't want to take full responsibility to give the territories to Russia. It's against the law, it's against the constitution. So he wants to share this responsibility with Ukrainian people. So let's see Ukrainian people say, let's give it away, don't worry about it, and just let's finish the war. If that's what Ukrainian people want, then Zelensky will do it, and he's not going to be under threat to be punished for this decision. Jonathan, I'd like to know your opinion. The Putin said many times that the agreement with Ukraine, there is no one to sign for Ukraine because Zelensky already stepped over his mandate. He is no longer valid president of Ukraine, so there must be an election. How else you can get another president? U.S. Donald Trump also mentions that Zelensky is in power for too long, and there has to be an election to see whether he is a valid president or not. So why don't U.S. and Russia agree for some period of ceasefire to hold presidential election, perhaps referendum at the same time or not, and just implement it? What's the problem there? In your opinion?
The problem here is that we are assuming that all sides are equally rational and all sides are equally willing to agree to something that would look reasonable to a person in a normal state of mind. Putin is not in a normal state of mind. He has demonstrated that time and again, that he keeps pressing for the maximalist goals because in his mind he has no other choice. And so basically, while this is a nice exercise in that rational people in a totally dispassionate frame of mind would agree to and say, yes, that makes sense. When you are in the state of mind that Vladimir Putin is in,
and he's right, Jonathan. Just to remember from Russian history, when what happened when Russian Empire decided to exit from the First World War. What happened when those soldiers which didn't understand what they were fighting for, what they were dying for, what were the goals of that war, because nobody invaded Russian Empire. They were just dying somewhere in Europe for unknown goals, unknown reasons. When all those soldiers returned to a country which was economically devastated, actually, because the economy of the Russian Empire at that time was just below the zero. They had huge problems in their economy. It was a famine there, and all that stuff.
Gee, this sounds familiar.
For our viewers, just who doesn't know that history well, a great revolution happened in Russian Empire, and Russian Empire stopped to exist, and the Bolshevik regime, so-called Soviet Union, appeared at the time. And Putin is completely aware of that scenario. Probably he would like to end this war in some way. He's quite reasonable person, and he understands that he's not able to win this war anyway. But he just cannot stop this war because dozens of Russian soldiers will come back to and now there is another point, because during the First World War, soldiers of Russian Empire were not paid such huge money for that war. They were given some food, and it was obligatory conscription process in Russian Empire. It was army of conscripts, and soldiers there served like 20 years. It was a normal term of serving for 20 years in Tsar army during the times of Russian Empire. And now, and now all those Russian soldiers, they're actually mercenaries. They're being paid huge money, millions of rubles, which they don't earn in their normal life. And they will come back with the battle experience, with weapons. Obviously, they probably stole some Kalashnikovs, some ammo for them, and they will not be paid any more. They will see that economy of Russia is completely devastated, that Russia is no more a great country which earns great money from trading their oil resources. Nobody is buying Russian oil, especially if United States will be successful in increasing oil production of Venezuela and trading that oil with China and India, and it will mean an end of the regime of Putin, regime of FSB, KGB, regime of Russian oligarchs, and a collapse of Russia. So he's quite aware of that scenario, and that this scenario is possible. So that's why he's continuing to stay on his maximalist requirements, understanding that they will not be accepted neither by Ukraine nor by Europe. Probably they could be accepted by United States, because for Donald Trump and his team, the only goal is to end this war in order for him to achieve the Nobel Prize as a great peacemaker. But he doesn't aware on which conditions this war should be ended. It means nothing for them whether Ukraine will keep territories or will lose territories, whether Russia will sign the obligations to rebuild Ukraine and pay reparations for all the devastations or not, and whether it will be exchange of all prisoners of war, of all kidnapped Ukrainian children or not. It means nothing for them. He just wants to end this war on any conditions, even awarding the war criminal Putin with that territories he can't achieve in military way by awarding him in a political way, giving him those territories as a result of peace treaty. But hopefully Ukraine doesn't want to sign such a peace agreement. Europe doesn't want Ukraine to sign such agreement, because it will be a really dangerous case for any future dictators, even for President Trump himself, in case he will decide to annex Greenland, for instance, because if President Putin will be awarded with the territories as a result of his war and invasion to Ukraine, and it will completely destroy the international law. Then anyone can do such operations just to add any territories he wants to their country by military power. Even President Trump can annex Greenland and say it was okay for Russia. We said it's okay for Russia to annex Ukrainian territories, so then we can annex Greenland, of course, and all that stuff. So I hope that the remnants of international law and the remnants of balancing system are still working, and some people in United States government are understanding this, because in other way we're very quickly riding to a third world war with unpredictable consequences.
Julian, I have a question to you. Trump's attempts somehow to get over control of Greenland, it's not even an issue of control, it's an issue of ownership of Greenland. Control is not enough for Trump. Because let's see, Trump, US has one military base today in Greenland. Can he have 10 military bases? Yes, of course. Nobody, Denmark or Greenland will object to that. The problem
they had as many as 21 back in World War II.
That's exactly correct. So, but now, since he started this economic sanctions, the tariffs against 8 leading European countries, all Scandinavian countries, Germany, England, France, and Dutch, this is something that, like, before Europe has an opinion, okay, Trump, okay, he's doing this, he says that, but at the end of the day, he will be back in the family of Europeans, NATO, and all that stuff. Now it's no longer the case, because Europeans now believe that there is no way that they can persuade normal relationship with Trump. It's now something very different with tariffs. So now Europe is preparing their own tariffs against the United States. Furthermore, there are talks in Davos in Switzerland that Canadian Prime Minister Carney, because of his economic background and so on, he would be put in charge of a world economic policy against United States, which will include all European countries, Canada, Japan, South Korea, perhaps Australia, not sure about that. And that could create a very different world order. And if that goes to that direction, then what is Ukrainian role in the new world order, if it will come to that?
I would say that right now that is such a complicated situation that it really cannot be projected. It looks like a bunch of hypotheticals that right now President Trump has been known to state a very strong position first and then back off of it. That has been the pattern. So we are going to see, in all likelihood, another series of diplomatic and economic maneuverings and backing off, so that the ultimate worst case scenario that you're foreseeing is not likely to occur. that there is going to be a reshuffling, no question about that. And what we're seeing right now is the process of this diplomatic, shall we say, diplomatic offensive, diplomatic jabs, diplomatic and economic maneuvers. This still is all in process. And so we will not become clear until the spring in what direction, in what shape this is ultimately going to take. Remember that the Russians were, Russia, China, or the so-called BRICS alliance, that is proving to be very ineffective because China itself is experiencing severe problems. Population decline for the 5th year in a row, which is a serious enough problem in and of itself for China's long-term viability, let alone Russia's. They are both suffering population decline, Russia to a much more drastic extent than China. So right now, all of these factors, when you look at them all together, it forms such a complex mess, just to be quite just a royal mess that is not likely to be fully resolved and become clear. It won't be until the end of 2026, when we have the midterm elections in the United States, that we see what judgment the American electorate is going to pass upon the efforts of Trump's administration. So what we are doing right now is we are commenting on a situation that is still very much in flux, and it's like trying to predict the outcome of a very complex chess position when it still has not been resolved. There are possibilities for both sides. So right now, this is one of those situations in which the only safe prediction the only thing you can possibly predict is change will continue. So,
yes, Jonathan, but one thing, let's say you're right, and most likely both sides will back off, starting from Trump and the Europeans and so on. But as a result of all that, it is not possible to return to status quo, because the result of all that is that America is losing soft power. And the soft power is one of the pillars on which America was standing since Second World War, and America is losing that soft power big time. And I think that will be very, very difficult to repair, especially under Trump administration. What do you think?
That again, that is another complex situation, because President Trump, in the perception of the American electorate, according to a recent poll, they favor President Trump's administration, the Republicans, to various problems such as immigration and others. Yeah. They are by a plurality favoring what the Trump administration is doing. What becomes crucial here is, as James Carville used to say back in 1992, he said, "It's the economy, stupid." Yeah. So now that tends to be the predominant influencing factor in all American elections, really. And so the entire outcome of all of this is going to ride very much on how successful is the American economy perceived to be by the beginning of the midterm election seasons this coming September. We'll then have a very clear picture on whether the Trump administration has a very powerful position or a very weak position going into those elections. So again, that's why I hesitate to say, the Trump administration is toast, or the Trump administration is riding high and is going to conquer everything in sight. No, given the complexity of the moves going on, and shifting it back to the significance for Ukraine, all of this once again boils down to Ukraine's ability and willingness to throw the decisive punch on the battlefield. Unlike Russia, which cannot throw a decisive punch anymore on the battlefield, Ukraine still has it within its ability to do so, and has demonstrated by progressively reducing the air defenses of Crimea, they are giving themselves the option. They are setting the stage for a potential counteroffensive to retake Crimea. And as long as that remains a possibility, it is impossible to say that nothing else can change.
Just wanted to add that the only beneficiary of this struggle over Greenland between the United States and the European Union, unfortunately, Russia and China, because they're applauding President Trump, and they're applauding all those processes which are happening, because they're actually weakening both United States, and they're weakening the European Union, because only united European Union and United States and other allies like Canada, Australia, Japan, New Zealand can stand towards the threat from the new axis of evil formed by Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China. And what Russian so-called Minister of Foreign Affairs Lavrov said over the desire of President Trump to control Greenland, he said, oh, well, we understand President Trump pretty well, because if Greenland is so important for United States, then Crimea, for the security of the United States, then the Crimea is so important for the security of Russia. So they're just building the parallels, and President Trump actually shows to Russia that they done the right things in 2014 with their annexation of Crimea, and Russia shows to President Trump that you cannot you can annex the sovereign territories of other state, and it will be nothing to you for that. Actually, like global, it's not. Russian economy is destroyed. Russia lost 1.5 million of people in Ukraine. Russia lost dozens of tanks or of aircrafts, of strategic aircraft bombers, which they cannot produce, which were the legacy of the Soviet Union. But they've got territories, so they would be awarded by those territories. They're being offered a place in a so-called peace peace
board. Peace board in Gaza.
Peace board in Gaza, which may go far away over the Gaza, and maybe the next big thing after the United States. Putin is getting more benefits actually with this war than he's losing, because Russian women will make more soldiers for him in the future. It was a policy of the Soviet Union that we can accept any casualties, because Soviet women will born more soldiers. So people means nothing for.
Well, not if there's not enough men. Not if there's not enough men to start the process.
They can import those men from China. There's already importing Chinese men
from Africa, from Asia.
From North Korea. So it's not a problem.
Gentlemen, I would like to thank you very much for today's program. And hopefully we'll see you next Tuesday, same place, same time. And hopefully we will have some better, more optimistic news for us to look at. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini.
God bless America. God bless Ukraine too. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.